Alright, so you made the big brain move of supporting the devs at Blackfoot Studio and finally picked up Ground Branch. Welcome to the world of true tactical gaming. This game isn't a hold your hand kind of game. You see the control screen, you click play, and now you're thrown into action. That's actually somewhat the charm of Ground Branch, to be honest, learning how to move tactically and purposefully and getting doinked by the AI along the way. But for those of you who just want to be better at the game, let's talk about how you do that. Here's a brief guide on how to improve your Ground Branch gaming experience. Some of these can actually be translated to other games as far as movement and tactics go, so if you find anything helpful, all I ask is you move your mouse or your thumb about 3 inches and tactically terminate that like button. Alright, enough of the self-promo. Subscribe as well. Let's get into the tips and tricks in Ground Branch. Let's start with setting up your operator. Recently introduced to the game are the stamina and encumbrance system. We'll talk about the stamina in a second, but the encumbrance system is how chonky you make your operator. The more stuff you have on you, the more chonk you've got, and this affects your speed and your stamina. As you prepare your gear, just keep that in mind. You've got multiple ways to set up your loadout. Chest rigs or battle belts or both. At the making of this video, the plate carriers don't do a thing, but that's coming in the near future. Whatever you put on your rig is what comes with you into battle, so be sure you've got enough primary and secondary ammunition pouches, as well as grenades or equipments that you might need. For extra equipment, you can do battle belt and chest rig, but that's going to make you a little thick and kind of slower. Like I said, it also affects your stamina, which ultimately is the biggest hindrance when it comes to aiming down sights or point shooting. Your operator gets fatigued after running, and even more fatigued if he's carrying around 150 pounds of gear. When he becomes fatigued, this is what the rifle sway looks like. Doing things like holding your weapon in the high ready position will fatigue your operator's arms and hinder your ability to stabilize your aim. To combat this, you've got to just take a deep breath, bring your rifle down, and let the stamina catch back up. Once it's back up, you can engage accurately again. However, if you do just have one enemy that you need to engage from a distance shortly after a run, there's a hold breath mechanic. Check the keybinds for this because I believe it's changed. I've got mine as shift, but as you can see, it stabilizes the rifle for that one shot, so make it count. Next, let's talk about the movement in the game. An inertia system was recently added to the game, so it's going to take a second for your operator to come to a complete stop after a dead sprint. This is also seen when you're turning. The heavier your weapon is, the more of a movement you're going to have when you stop turning. It's a subtle mechanic that can make a big difference between remaining in cover and overshooting your safe zone. Some situations may need less of an all-out sprint and more of a light jog to cover. In Ground Branch, you've got several different speeds. The all-out sprint, the jog run, the walk, the crouch walk, the crouch run, and the crouch sprint. The right movement speed can mean the difference between life and death. To add more to movements, make sure you're staying close to the walls. You're a smaller target if you're tight on either side than right down the middle of the lane. You also tend to be able to see the enemy before they can fire at you first. If you're in the middle of the hall, you're kind of a lame duck. Keeping close to the wall will also allow you to not expose yourself while you're assessing doorways. While you're at a doorway and you're about to enter a room, don't be afraid to toss in a flash and then swarm in. For this method, speed is effective because the enemy will be stunned. If you're attempting to enter without a form of stunning surprise, make sure you slice your pie. You should have nearly 160 degrees sliced before you enter the room. Well, of course, depending on the objects in that room. This exposes your body minimally when attempting to clear. Okay, one more point when it comes to movement, and this is very, very, very important. Don't get sandwiched. Here's what I mean. You always want to know your surroundings so you don't get flanked. You need to be sure that you've got at least part of your 360-degree angles clear. That's another reason you stick close to walls. But when it comes to clearing a building or even outdoor areas, you want to always keep the threats coming from one location or one side of you. So let's just say on this map rundown, there are essentially 4 floors: the roof, the second floor, the ground floor, and the basement. What you don't want to do is sandwich yourself between the second floor and the basement and allow for someone to come upstairs or downstairs to flank you. Instead, Clear out the basement or the second floor first. Now, I prefer the second floor because working down for me is much easier. I don't know the official tactics or how that's supposed to work. Someone correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong. And then the first floor, and then the basement. The same goes for multiple buildings. If you've got 3 buildings, clear the external building first, then move toward the middle building and clear them out in a row. There aren't a lot of maps with buildings like this at the moment, but the value remains even outside the game into other tactical shooters. After movements, let's talk a little bit about shooting mechanics. First and foremost, point shooting is highly effective. Across the map effective. Real point shooting is far more accurate than hip fire. Plop a laser right on your weapon and you've got a quick response system without the extra step of ADSing. You can also equip multiple optics to allow for a diverse range for your weapon. Switching to a canted RMR is highly satisfying. Also be aware that single shot is going to be far more accurate than full auto. In the real world, full auto is more of a suppressing mechanic than a method for killing people. Full auto can be inaccurate and difficult to control. You're better off working on your multiple mouse clicks than expecting to get great accuracy with full auto. Now let's talk a bit about throwables. Grenades cannot be cooked. I don't think you truly understand how crazy it would be to cook a grenade in real life. You're holding a death trap in your hand that can slightly malfunction and put you in a deep forever nap. Flashbangs are somewhat the same. You can prep them while aiming, but they won't explode in your hand. They also have an incredibly short fuse time. To see a more accurate representation of your grenade trajectory, pull the pin and scroll the mouse wheel to see the angles. Less realistic, but more accurate. Go solo to test how far your operator can throw it, and hopefully, he's a better toss than that benevolent Dr. Fauci. Next is not something some of you men like to hear, but size matters. Your weapon length can determine how close you can be to cover while you effectively fire. Let's say you're holding the Mark 110 with the long boy suppressor. You're going to have to put some distance between you and another object if you're trying to fire. It's not going to be great for close quarters, obviously. And if for some reason an enemy gets close enough to you, he's going to be able to pull up his rifle before you fire yours. It may sound like common sense to some, but for those close quarters, bring a shorter rifle. Bigger ain't always better. Now, if it does happen to you, and you're stuck too close to an enemy without the ability to raise your weapon and fire, switch to your pistol. You can fire from the chest and keep on trucking. Alright, finally let's talk about some other equipment just briefly. On the larger maps, you may not always have a high magnification optic attached to your weapon. If you don't, you can always equip a set of binoculars or the rangefinder to scout out an area before you wish to directly engage. Alright gents, that's about it. Hopefully short, sweet, and to the point, and I hope it helps you out a bit when it comes to the game, because I know the game doesn't, again, hold your hand, and the AI can be somewhat brutal. But again, if it helps you out, consider supporting me with one of those buttons down below, and go out there and get some confirmed kills. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tactical.